Welcome to the Menopause Playbook Podcast. I'm your coach, Amelia Lady B. Get ready to enhance your internal conversations and create strategies to navigate life, menopause, faith, health, and mental well-being. Grab your playbooks, ladies. It's time to get in the game. Well, hello, everyone. I'm back with another episode. And today we'll be talking about healing from doctor and healthcare trauma. Just as a disclaimer, this episode is not meant to bash the medical profession at all, but to discuss the areas of concern based on experience, based on my experience and current issues with the quality of healthcare. With that being said, let's get into it. First, I want to define trauma and gaslighting. Trauma is when we experience very stressful, frightening, or distressing events that are difficult to cope with or feel out of control. And gaslighting is manipulating someone into questioning their own perception of reality. Some examples of gaslighting are denying something that the other person knows is true, spreading rumors about them, and blaming the victim. So it's important to share these definitions because sometimes as women, and for sure Black women, we tend to take on a lot of things, so trauma and gaslighting, and we sort of brush them off. But over time, I feel like these instances with different incidents, they can turn into rage, fear, self-doubt, and unwilling to speak up about things. So we kind of harbor on, or we take on these feelings. We're brushing them off because this is something that we deal with possibly on a daily basis, whether you're at work, whether you're with even around family, so-called friends. You're just out and about in the community, just out, and you're experiencing these variations of trauma, whether indirectly or you're experiencing direct trauma or even generational trauma. And we take this stuff on and it just piles up and turns into what I just explained: rage, fear, self-doubt, and unwillingness to speak up. So I want to talk about indirect trauma and generational trauma. So indirect trauma could be something that you experience from just hearing about it. So, or someone that you know experienced something and you feel like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to the doctor because XYZ. And we're using doctor for the purposes of this episode. So I don't want to go to the doctor because my friend went to the doctor and this happened. My cousin went to the doctor and they got diagnosed with XYZ and they were put on this medication. Someone else I know went to the doctor, got diagnosed with maybe cancer, and then 2 months later they were gone. And so we take on this stuff, or maybe something happened to them as well with a doctor, and you feel like all doctors are going to be the same. And then with generational traumas, they stem from like family. So it's family's bad experience with the doctors or hospitals, and then they tend to creep into our thoughts as well. So they're sort of indirect, but it's also generational because through the bloodline, you notice that most people don't go to the doctor. And sometimes you may feel like, I don't remember last time I went, or you'll say, even if you went, you don't take the prescription or something to that nature. And you realize everybody in your family is kind of similar. I want to take it a little step further, and I'm going to talk about generational trauma as far as with Black Americans. So Black Americans, within the Black American community, a lot of the older generation, if you talk to family members, or you know of any family members who have that kind of like, oh, I don't go to doctors, I don't trust doctors, right? A lot of that stems from medical apartheid. And that is a time in history where medical experimentation on Black Americans were pretty high. So during colonial times and even up until this day, because as you know, things are still happening, right? So if you ever heard of the story of the Tuskegee experiments and Henrietta Lacks and so many different individuals, I can't, even during slavery times where women were experimented on because they were trying these different treatments or surgeries or whatever, and they weren't given any, alcohol, because I think at the time they were either given like maybe a what do you call it, the sleeping gas that you put over your nose, but it wasn't gas, it was like the chloroform over their nose, or they weren't given like alcohol to drink, because I think at that time it was only drinking alcohol. They didn't really have any like pills, like Advil and things like that during that time. So this type of generational trauma affects most Black Americans because of the impact that it has had throughout the generations. And we have seen it up until today. Black women have a higher chance of death during pregnancy, unfortunately, and so do the babies. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Serena Williams' story. When she gave birth to her second child, she was in the hospital and she was feeling pain and she couldn't breathe. So she was unable to breathe. She had a lot of tests done and they said, well, you're fine. They had her sit up and all these different things. We're going to give you oxygen. She's like, no, there's something wrong. And she says, I need to have this test done. So they did that specific test, and lo and behold, she had a pulmonary embolism. Here's the thing. She knew her body because she had blood clots prior to this pregnancy, or years prior, but she knew her body. She knew what it felt like. She knew what her breathing patterns were. She knew her pain levels. And so the nurses and the doctors were kind of like, no, you're fine, you're fine. She's like, no, I need this done. And then she had it. And the sad thing about it was touch and go. She could have actually lost her life had she not advocated for herself in that moment. And so a lot of times when it comes to this type of indirect trauma, this generational trauma, and what we know throughout history is that it impacts us mentally, and we don't even realize it. We're because we're apprehensive to either getting surgery, we're apprehensive to taking treatments, we're apprehensive to just seeing the doctor and even listening and believing what they're saying. And you're like, oh, well, I'll be fine. I'm just, it's just the pain will go away kind of thing. So you're kind of brushing it off. I want to kind of share my experience with my trauma, where I accepted my pain. And that's something that we have a tendency to do. And I believe that this isn't just for Black women, but this is also white women as well. I have been able to communicate and connect with other women, with white women as well, who are in the endo community, and they share some of the similar experiences as well when it comes to gaslighting and the trauma that they experience in the doctor's offices. And so I took on the pain as if it's okay. Like, this is just going to be my life. And because of that, because I took that on and because I was gaslighted so much, I just decided not to go to the doctors anymore. Like, I literally had not seen a gyno for 7 years up until let me not lie. It was a while, okay? So it was I believe it was 7 years that I was without a doctor. And you can listen to the rest. You can listen to my full story about my journey from endometriosis to having a radical hysterectomy in the last podcast episode. But yeah, I accepted that pain, and I just said, well, this is just a part of me now. Like, this is just something that I have to deal with. If there were some people who were saying it'll get better when I get pregnant, I guess when that time comes, then I guess I'll get better. And it was debilitating for me because I suffered like literally every month, sometimes even not during my menstrual, but before or after. And it didn't have to be that way. But it just was. And that was unfortunately due to just the lack of, not just the lack of knowledge, but the lack of that support from the medical professionals whom we look up to, right? So I'll get into that more a little later. So how do we deal, or how do we heal from trauma? So the first thing we want to do is address the lie. What I like about social media is communities. And you heard me mention about the endo community. So social media, unfortunately, back in the day, we didn't have social media. Barely had Google. So Instagram didn't come out until like 2010. And when it came out, it only came out for Apple. And then in 2012, it came out for Android. I downloaded Instagram in 2012. So in 2012, I still had not seen a doctor. I think 2012 was the first time I met my current gyno. So I would post a lot about endometriosis and stuff like that. And I was like, I got comments and things like that, and I saw people, and I was like, oh my gosh, wow, okay, there are people talking about endometriosis as well. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so amazing. And I just felt like, wow, I found my people. So before I continue, I want to go to the scriptures and talk a little bit about community. So in Matthew 18:20, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there among them. And then we have Psalms 33:1-3. How good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. So the scripture is a little bit longer, so I encourage you to go read it. And I understand, when we're talking about the word of God, I do understand that this means like a community of believers, right? But the community means that you believe in like the same thing, like-mindedness. You have like-mindedness. And this is what I mean for your social media communities, or even you're finding your people out in the community. So there might be some community events surrounded by something that you're passionate about, or what's going on in your life. Trauma communities, endometriosis communities, PCOS communities, all those communities, right? So wherever you find that community, they're there, and you feel like you're seen. So in addressing that lie, right, you found people who share your experience, and then that light can turn on and say, wait, I said what I said, and it was the truth. Somebody else is experiencing the same thing I am. That's amazing. For me as well, when I saw, it was at the time, was it 2 or 1? I think it was 2 black women, young black women, when I got into Instagram, and then YouTube started allowing longer videos. So then YouTubers started, and I came across this YouTube video of a young lady who was sharing her experience with endometriosis, and I was like, wow. And she was a black woman. And I was like, wow, okay, so it's not just me. Because when you are a part of a community where you kind of see only white women that don't look like you, they're not your complexion, they're not your ethnicity, they don't understand your background, it kind of can get a little discouraging at times too. Because you're like, well, am I an outlier? And then you finally see someone who looks like you and you're like, whoa, okay, there's somebody else out there. It's not just me. So finding your community, addressing the lie is so important. So the next thing is to address the trauma. I don't know your experience or experiences, so it may require therapy and or / counseling. So wherever you are in your journey, I think counseling is very beneficial at this time. I honestly think that anybody going through anything in their life going through anything or could possibly just daily trauma of work, daily trauma of family, whatever it is, I think everybody can benefit from counseling. For me and my experience, once I realized what I felt was not over exaggeration, that my diagnosis actually meant something, my views about my pain changed. Like I said, when it came to community, it made me realize that the pain was significant and it meant that something was wrong with my body. Logically, somebody can say, yeah, that's what that means. But when you're told time and time again that you just have a low tolerance for pain, that you're over exaggerating what you feel, you take that on. That becomes a part of you because that's part of the trauma. And the gaslighting, they want you to believe something that really isn't true. They're putting you down. And so you take that on mentally and you think, well, I can take it. And so this is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to sit in this. It's fine that I'm on the ground, on the floor, in fetal position, sleeping at night. It's fine. It's okay that I feel like knives, forks, and everything else is stabbing me in my stomach and every part of my body. It's fine. It's totally okay. And that's kind of the mentality that I had before I had the opportunity to address my trauma. When I had therapy, now I went to therapy in 2018. I had my hysterectomy in 2014. And then in 2018, I decided to go to therapy because dealing with everything, the transition to surgical menopause was getting to me. And then everything that was happening in my life was really getting to me. And I was spiraling because I noticed it at work. I was just like mean. I felt like I was mean and I was short and I was rude. And it's like, that's not my character. And then I would cry about it and I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me? It took a point one time. It took a point for me. I had to go to my supervisor and be like, yo, I'm sorry. Like, if you got to write me up. I'll sign it. I'm so sorry that I blew up like that during the meeting because it was very uncalled for. And I was like, that's not me. And in that moment, I had the opportunity to talk to her what was going on with me. And she understood. And she said, I appreciate you for apologizing. And she gave me grace. Yes, she was a believer. Thank you, Jesus. But that opened my eyes to realize, yo, Amelia, you need help. You need to talk this through because everything is now piling up and you're lashing out in the wrong direction. So I had to find my voice in that moment through therapy. And when she told me that my feelings were validated, that everything that I felt emotionally, whether it was anger towards certain, the so-called professionals that were helping me or did not help me, or the lack thereof, right? It was okay. It was okay for me to feel, even angry about the situation that I could not have children anymore, just through natural birth. It was okay to feel what I felt, to sit in these moments, but don't let them dictate my future. That was so empowering for me. It was what I needed to hear, what I needed in my life for that moment, and what I still continue to need, because I have to continuously remind myself of where I came from. I have to remind myself of what God has brought me through. I have to remind myself of who I am and whose I am, because sometimes we forget. Sometimes we forget that this journey, the journey that we were on, has brought us over to this point, and I'm grateful for it. Which brings me to number 3. Now, there's so many different things I can mention, but I had to culminate this into like a short little package because of time. I don't want this episode to be like a whole 2 hours long or something. But this third thing is to put your faith in God. And I know how hard it is to do that. But I'm going to share the scripture with you, and it's Psalms 146 and 3. Do not trust in nobles, in man who cannot save. I'll say that again. Do not trust in nobles. So that's higher up people. We could put, whoever you want to put in there. In man and who cannot save. The reality is, right? Human beings will fail you intentionally and unintentionally every time. And that's just life, right? Everybody doesn't mean to fail you or to, make you feel bad or anything like that, but it happens, even in moments where if I feel like I've let someone down or something, I will go to that person and say, I'm sorry, this XYZ, I hope I can make it up, things like that. But it's done unintentionally. I didn't intentionally do it. But this is humans. This is what it means to be human. And the thing about it is we put healthcare professionals on like a pedestal in a way because they're supposed to know. They're supposed to care. They're supposed to treat. But what we forget is they are human, right? So some have bedside manner, some do not. Some care with an extensive, they truly have a passion. It's the ones who have this passion for what they do. And there are some who are just kind of either desensitized or they're just there just to do the job. Yeah, my dad was a doctor, and so I'm just going to be a doctor and this. So they're even their need for or their intention for the position, or their what do I want to say? I guess their intention or something for the position is not necessarily there because they have a passion for it. It's just because. There are some people like that. There are some people with no bedside manner at all. There are some people with bedside manner and don't know their stuff. There are some people without bedside manner but know their stuff for real, and they're going to treat you really well. And that can happen. It's like they may not have great bedside manner, but they know what they're doing. Either way, we are human. Must we give them grace? Yeah. Yeah, we can give them grace. But at the same time, we can't put our faith in these individuals. We just cannot. We have to put our faith first and foremost in God and allow Him to direct us in everything that we're doing. All we need is that mustard seed faith. That faith that is so small it can fit on the tip of a pin. It is so small, but so mighty, because God can do anything. He could bring us through anything. As we're going through this healing process, we're going to heal. Every person listening is going to heal in different ways. Some people may need it more spiritually. Some people may need it physically in their bodies in some certain way. And it may come through not necessarily the physical touch of healing, but learning how to eat properly. Learning how to, God is going to teach you how to eat properly, lead you to the right therapist, lead you to the right coaches, lead you to the right nutrition, lead you to the people that's going to help you to reach that point of healing. You might need healing mentally. Like I said, find the right therapist. He's going to lead you to your healing, however that journey may look for you. Daily through this journey of healing, what I want you to do is ask God that as you navigate your health, that He give you peace, strength, and discernment as you find doctors, coaches, therapists, whatever. As you choose treatments for this, in the purposes of this episode, for menopause, if you decide to go through hormone replacement therapy, that God guides you to which form of hormone replacement therapy. Do you take the synthetic version or do you take the bioidentical, more natural version? What version of it do you take? Do you take a patch, a pellet, a cream, orally? What is it that you take? And then ask if you're going through it naturally. If you can't take either or, like myself, ask God for the direction to do so. God, what do I need to do? What do I take to help with these symptoms? How do I manage my body, my life? And how do you do it with wisdom? God will give you the wisdom to get through this. So we're at the end. And I want to give you some plays for this week. So if you don't have your notebooks out already, go ahead and get your notebooks out, because I have a few plays for the week for you so that you could manage and practice throughout your journey through your healing process. So the first one is to acknowledge your medical trauma or traumas. Recognize and validate your feelings and and seek out counseling if you haven't done so already. Number 2, find or create your community. Again, this is social media. This is face-to-face. So if you have any communities out in your community, family and friends, a close circle of family and friends that you trust, that will uplift you, that will be right by your side, that can help you through this journey as well, whether it's helping you find that doctor or find a new therapist, whatever it is, they're going to help you through this. These are your people. Find your community. Number 3, write down what you're looking for in a doctor. Y'all know we write down this list. For those of us who are single, those of y'all who are married, y'all probably did the same thing before you found your husbands. But you write down this long list of what you want. You want a 6'5", 6'2", or 5'8". You want, a little meat on them, or either you want the 6-pack. You want him to have, you write all that stuff down. You want him to have a great job, great career, make this amount of money, 6-figure salary and more. All this stuff. Y'all write that down. Write what you want down in a doctor. Whatever it is you want. Write it down and then pray over it. But I want you to keep in mind, as you write some of these qualities down, that just like anybody, and the women who are married can probably attest to it. Y'all wrote this list down and you probably got one thing on that list. But he was the right man for you. So sometimes all the things will not be checked off your list for your doctor, but know that this might just be the doctor for you, and you'll know who it is. You'll know exactly who's the right one for you. You'll know. And just pray over it, y'all. Pray over that list. Okay, the 4th thing is advocate for yourself. So advocating for yourself, once as you're healing through your trauma, you'll realize your voice will begin to resound. You're going to be speaking out. I'm a natural introvert. I couldn't have never seen myself in a position to do a podcast, to do to be on social media talking about my personal life, any of this stuff. But yet here I am. And two, when I'm in the doctor's office, I found that my voice is a little louder and it carries because I'm asking in-depth questions. And I also have the ability to walk out at any time because I hired you to do something and I can fire you as well. Now, will they feel the impact? They may not feel the direct impact just because I walked out of the office because they have other patients. But the fact of the matter is we have the power to hire and fire our doctors. We don't have to stick with the same doctor through the years. If they are not meeting the needs, your needs, what you need now, then it's time to go. If it's a doctor you've been seeing since you were 14 years old, 15, 16, whomever, it's the family gynecologist, y'all, it might not be the right one for you. They just might not. You need specific things for you. You are not your mother. You are not your auntie. You are not grandma. You are not your cousin. You are you. So whatever you need, you got to find that doctor that's right for you. But then as you're doing this, advocate for you. Speak up for you. Ask the hard questions. What is this medication going to do to me? What are the side effects? How is this going to benefit my treatment and my recovery? What does this look like for me? I have concerns about this and then have the ability to research everything before you take it. Research it, look for the side effects, discuss it with your spouse. If you have a spouse, discuss it with family or friends, because guess what? If you have a family history of something, that it may not have affected you just now because you haven't taken that specific thing that affects whatever it is that comes up. So advocate for yourself heavily. Speak up. Know your numbers. Get your blood work, paperwork, get everything. Get all these documents and read for yourself. Speak up. Ask the questions. Advocate for yourself. And the fifth one is put your faith foot forward. Faith like a mustard seed. I have a few focus scriptures for you too, and they're Joshua 1:9, Romans 8:28, and then we have Matthew 9:20 and 22. Most of you know what this is, and this is talking about the woman with the issue of blood. Now, I didn't bring this up during this episode because I have something else planned surrounding this story. But I want you to read these scriptures, really take it in for yourself, and ask the Lord for direction in your healing journey. I pray that as you are on this journey to healing and growing, that the Lord connects you to the right physicians, therapists, coaches, and communities. Know that whatever the enemy had planned, God has given you the strategy, the peace, the strength, and the wisdom to overcome it. Be blessed. Thank you for listening to the Menopause Playbook. Follow me on Instagram at Millennial in Menopause. Check out my website, millennialinmenopause.com. Until next time, ladies, be blessed, bold, and beautiful.